people like so-called giftians. This is going to be a highly enlightening afternoon by all means. Why I believe so? To begin with, we have two highly acclaimed academicians. The speaker is a relatively young person. The chair is a highly experienced, acclaimed, wide-ranging development economist in its true sense. And the topic that they are going to take up is going to be equally interesting. The topic is the local cultural cleavages and prosocial behavior, evidence from household electricity theft. You know that theft of any kind is antisocial, not prosocial. And when it comes to electricity, it is going to be highly known prosocial. And we in GIFT, we are very much concerned about electricity because, as per the latest decision of the central government, our eligibility to borrow is very much contingent upon our electricity reforms. And this behavior, theft behavior, there are quite a lot of issues that are confronting the state electricity boards in the country. And we have been talking for quite a long time. As a student of innovation, we have been talking about the transmission laws. And equally important is another law, and quite a lot of transmission laws is what Dr. Panda is going to talk, in fact. So it's going to be very enlightening afternoon. And in the world of Google and this man here, what is his name? Siri. There is no need of introduction of experts, but I just want to spend 1 minute each as a matter of courtesy, because I very much appreciate the gesture by Dr. Panda and Professor Gangapathyaya to be with us. We would have really loved your presence, and we would have loved to have a lunch with us and a dinner with you. And that anyway, I look forward to that wonderful opportunity. Till then, for the audience, I would like to introduce, to begin with, Dr. Panda, as he's an assistant professor of economics in Indian Institute of Technology, Bhubaneswar. And his interest is primarily in empirical political economics, corruption governance, political and institutional determinants of economic growth and development outcomes, international political economy and transnational policy, and so on. And what I would like to highlight from Dr. Panda's CV to my young scholars over here is that prior to his PhD, he had his exposure in ICRIER. ICRIER is Indian Council for International Economic Relations in New Delhi, one of the most influential policy think tanks in the country. And then he had his exposure again in Zurich University. This essentially means that he was not the one who was confined to a particular individual, me and my supervisor, me and my institute. No. Dr. Panda exposed himself to a much wider space of interactive learning. And in fact, in the modern world, I would say that what matters is not so much what do you know. Equally important is whom you know. By sitting in your own university and always under the protection of your supervisor, you will not be knowing anyone. So I think this is a key lesson. I really appreciated his association with the prominent institutions. And, he also had his stint with the Indian Statistical Institute, working with Tata Motors. What I really appreciated this inclination for this young scholar to kind of expose himself and acquaint himself with a wider interactive learning space. Dr. Panda, I think your CV is eminently, I would say that highly, I would say, a source of envy for any academicians of your age. I welcome you with a lot of appreciation today, and I also look forward to welcoming you to the Institute in the near future in person. Let this online entry be a stepping stone to your offline entry, Dr. Panda. Now, coming to Professor Kaushik Gangapathyaya, he is in a big league. I must say that Professor Kaushik has his, ISI background. From there, he had his master's and PhD in Rochester. And he is in the league of big, I would say, highly influential management scholars and economists of Kozhikode, IIM. You may be knowing that IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Bangalore. And Dr. Kaushik, Professor Kaushik is a good friend. He was till last month, he was here. And I was really, Kozhikode is maybe 25 years now, I suppose, but in a very short span of time, Kozhikode has attracted the attention of the academic world, and they are now in the third position. I would say that the Calicut provides a fertile soil. That's what, because I like all the people in Calicut, they're very nice people, and I think all the northern people, including South Keralites, are very good. But I think that is perhaps one of the reasons for Calicut, IIM Calicut rising to such prominence in such a short span of time. And I think when I was looking at Professor Kaushik's publication record, I really loved it because the range of empirical and applied economic issues that he has attempted, from ICT to gender to poverty to employment. And I think I would say that today we are living in a world of too narrow a specialist. I always tell my students, you should not be too narrow a specialist. You should be the final word when it comes to your topic. But you should not be hiding under the table when some other related topic is. You should be able to converse eloquently, comfortably on any developmental issues. And I think this is what Professor Gangapathyaya is. His range of publications and his editorial positions and all what an academician could aspire. I think I've not met Professor Gangapathyaya. I know he must be much younger to me, but he has very high accomplishments. I encourage all of you to look at his biodata. Professor Gangapathyaya, on behalf of the GIFT community, on behalf of all those who are assembled here online and offline, we welcome you to this meeting and request you to kindly chair the meeting and conduct the proceedings. And I must say that it's a great privilege for us that you joined us, and Calicut is not that far away. With Vande Bharat, we are actually much closer. And I would like you to give us a date so that we can book a ticket and send to you. And over to you. And I think it will not be inappropriate if I kind of appropriately honor you by asking you to chair and initiate the discussion. I mean, only chair may not be when you have such a competent professor. I should not be asking my discussion to my coordinator was willing to do it, but I thought it is only appropriate that the chair himself initiate the discussion. And over to you, Professor Gangapathyaya, for chairing the session. And now it is you and all among us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I hope you can hear me, no? All of you?
Very much audible, very much audible.
Thank you, sir. You are a very much enlightened and articulate speaker. I loved your introductions. It was very kind of you to introduce me and, of course, my brother, like Dr. Panda, the way you said. It is also very much, I'm honored to have a chair a session in the Gulati Institute of Taxation and Finance. This is a very prestigious institute and which is doing a lot of good work. So I think without any further ado, let us start the proceedings. I don't know, Dr. Sitakant Pandya, I mean, you may please start your paper, presenting your paper. I mean, how long do we have? 40 minutes or so? Then with some discussion time.
Normally, our rule is 35 minutes. Since you said
Okay.
50, 40.
Yeah, 35 minutes is fine. Yeah, so thank you, sir. And thank you once again for having me and very, very kind introduction, kind way of introduction.
So, sir, can you see this? Can you see the PPT?
Yeah, very much. Well displayed.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Respected Director Professor Joseph, Professor Gangopadhyay, my faculty friends from Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation, Trivandrum, and all those who are actually kind enough to be present in this seminar. So in this, I at the outset must thank Dr. Kiran and Dr. Anup and those at the institute to have given an invitation to present my work at this prestigious institute. In today's seminar, what I'm going to do is I'm going to present a political economy paper that speaks to the evolution of pro-social behavior in a largely collectivistic society like India. So this is not an energy economics paper. It's more of a political economics paper where I talk about the impact of local cultural factors on the evolution of at least one set of pro-social behavior, that is the lack of the lack of electricity theft on the part of households. So this is the way I'm actually going to situate this talk. So first I'll talk about the motivation as to why I've done the study, and then I'll present a sneak preview of the results, and then very briefly I will present the literature review, and then we straight away move to empirical analysis, and we'll conclude with some policy implications. So what am I saying here in this paper is this. Say, there's this question: do local social norms affect pro-social behavior? So what is social norm? So social norms are rules of behavior. So they are, of course, a kind of institutions. If you follow Douglas North's classic definition, like institutions are the rules of the game in a society, formal or informal, that structure human interactions. So social norms are also a kind of social institutions. So social norms, they inform group members how to construe a given situation, how to feel about it, and how to behave in it. They exert social influence on group members by prescribing which reactions are appropriate and which are not. So social norms actually shape the kind of behavior that we experience or we tend to see on the part of individuals living in it. So social norms, whether they actually affect pro-social behavior, has enormous theoretical as well as practical implications for our understanding of human behavior. So there are a lot of cross-disciplinary literature that has been happening in quite some time in the fields of evolutionary economics, evolutionary biology, anthropology, sociology, as well as economics, that tells us that largely there are two kinds of societies in world history: collectivistic societies and individualistic societies. And in the collectivistic societies, people are more pro-social, people are more civic compared to the individualistic societies. So having said that, can these local social norms, which can be characterized by collectivism, individualism, cleavages, explain one set of pro-social behavior? There can be a number of examples on pro-social behavior. Examples of pro-social behavior, like for example, if you go to a metro or bus, if you conventionally we are wired to actually offer our seat to an elderly person or a pregnant mother. Right, so that is an example of pro-social behavior. Or if someone meets an accident on the road, our civicness or our pro-sociality demands that we attend to the victim and take him to the hospital and so on, right? So that is also an example of pro-social behavior. Now, the societal fabric or the moral values or whatever, the incidence of higher corruption that is being seen in today's days, they are all a direct consequence of the lack or the fast decline of pro-social behavior on the part of individuals at large. So therefore, in order to actually increase the incidence of pro-social behavior on the part of citizens, we need to ensure that the state implements some suitable public policies. And in this kind of a paper would actually throw some light on how to influence and motivate pro-social behavior. If we can understand the role of cultural factors like local social norms, and what are these social norms characterized by? They are characterized by at least one cleavage or one gulf in the society that is being witnessed across cultural, across collectivistic and individualistic societies. So now one set of pro-social behavior in this paper is not stealing electricity from public power grids. Not stealing is an example of public pro-social behavior. Now this question, whether the collectivism, individualism cleavage does affect the evolution of this pro-social behavior of not stealing electricity. This question I'm examining in the context of household electricity theft in India. And of course, as Professor Joseph told us, that electricity theft is a major public goods problem that results in significant annual financial losses. On the part of companies, on the part of consumers and power discoms, it has huge economic consequences. So if we study the role of collectivism, individualism, cleavages, and explaining this kind of a phenomenon, it has enormous policy implications. Now, let me take you to the logic and then economic reasoning behind this, and then we'll simply run down the empirics and then we have the talk. See, there are two kinds of societies. So in collectivistic societies, people solve their community problems together. So there's a relatively higher amount of social harmony and equality, and there's a lot of influence of social capital, social networks on everyday life in collectivistic societies. In collectivistic societies, people are more responsive to social norms. They believe in cooperation, they believe in social solidarity. In contrast, in individualistic societies, people are more unique, they are more opportunistic, they are more expedient, they are more selfish. And these people, they solve their social problems individually, and they are less likely to exhibit pro-social and civic behavior than the collectivistic societies. And this socio-cultural cleavage matters for economic outcomes. There's a huge line of literature in the last 10 years, thanks to people like Yuri Gorovnichenko, Roland Obler-Griff is a big economic historian, and Benavu, Tirol, they all have contributed to this line of work in a big way. So there's a recent paper by Caroline Graff et al. In this year, they have published their work. So what they have found is, you see, social norms are there, incentives are also there, incentives that are aligned, incentives that are being thrown up by public policies. Now, if public policy incentives align with existing social norms, then they lead to more pro-social behavior. Because human beings, they may not be universally persuaded by incentives to behave pro-social, but that the effectiveness of incentive depends on social norms. So this team of researchers, they gave us an example of a blood donation camp. So they did run some experiments in the context of blood donation camps. You see, people sometimes they are incentivized by time of work or some financial incentives to donate their blood. But if they themselves do not have altruistic motives, or if their local social norms do not allow them to go to the blood donation camp in the first place, then even if there is the incentive of some money or some time of work, they are not going to behave pro-social. So social norms, they are self-enforcing behavior patterns. And of course, electricity theft is a non-violent crime. So people sometimes think that it is acceptable. So it is important to understand how people conform to such norms and how a society tolerates it through coordination or sanctions. In India, there have been a lot of public policies that have aimed at deterring power theft, ranging from stricter enforcement, heavier punishment, smarter technologies, and so on. But power theft has not been curbed in a big way. So when many people in the society commit electricity theft over time, what happens is that people perceive that it is socially acceptable. And when people gradually think that it is socially acceptable to commit this illegal activity, it seeps into their behavior, it seeps into the local social norms of cooperation and reciprocity. And if that happens, then electricity theft turns into a coordination game. So as we know, coordination game is a type of simultaneous game which describes the situation where a player will earn a higher payoff when they select the same course of action as another player. So the game is not one of pure conflict, which results in multiple pure strategy mass equilibrium in which players choose matching strategies. So collectivistic societies, in contrast with individualistic societies, promote prosocial and social civic behavior. This is a direct result of this model in Benevolent 2006. And collectivistic societies are also important in fostering what Mancur Olson has described in his classic work, the logic of collective action. So collectivistic societies are more conducive to fostering collective action on the part of society citizens. And what happens in a collectivistic society is they normally put a lot of pressure on conformity, and they promote stronger aversion towards dereliction of social norms. And these people, they are more likely to realize power theft might affect collective well-being. And as we know that electricity theft is an antisocial behavior, it affects collective welfare and energy access of the people in the near to the public power grid. Now, if we follow these line of arguments, then we expect from our empirical analysis that collectivistic societies would witness less prevalence of electricity theft, as they would discourage and check potential activities of power theft. However, there's an equally appealing counter argument there. People in collectivistic localities, they do care for the societal interests and collective well-being, and might tolerate and protect some of them in their community who steal electricity either due to their poverty or resource constraints or simply local political or social influence. And this is one channel that is usually seen in parts of the northern regions. Like, I mean, if you can spare some Hindi here. ये तो हमारा बिरादर का आदमी है, ये हमारा आदमी है, तो गरीब है, and so on. So if ये local नेता का आदमी है, so if this kind of feelings that are prevalent in the collectivistic societies, and these people, they normally they accept it, they tolerate it. So even if it is a dereliction of social norm, and if such things happen and people ignore these instances of electricity theft and internalize that it's a natural thing on the part of the local people, then collectivistic societies would witness higher incidence of electricity theft. In contrast, in individualistic societies, people care for their own selfish interests and are expected not to tolerate any shortcoming, any dereliction of community behavior of others that would hamper their individual welfare. And if electricity theft happens, which results in inefficient or low quality electricity delivery to their households, then people in individualistic villages, they are more likely to report to the local authorities or police against the offenses. So this way, individualistic people would discourage and check potential activities of power theft in their localities. And if we think along these lines, we may hypothesize that individualistic villages would see less electricity theft than the collectivistic societies. This is indeed the case, as my empirical analysis shows. I find that in India, collectivistic villages or neighborhoods witness higher incidence of electricity theft. So to be precise, a family head who is staying in a collectivistic village rather than an individualistic village is significantly more likely to report that he or she has indulged in electricity theft for his household. Then you see there's a long line of literature on electricity theft that has been published in many energy economics journals, energy policy, energy economics, and so on. So they all refer to this line of findings. So electricity theft is a major economic problem affecting energy consumption in low-income countries. That contributes more than 1/5 of the total loss of electricity produced in India. There have been n number of public policies, aiming at deterring power theft, but they have not been that successful. Therefore, in Arklin et al., they conclude that technical solutions, like if you introduce smart meters and all those technologies, they alone cannot be enough to deter power theft, and policymakers should consider analyzing social and political factors. And there are many other papers that explain different ways in which electricity theft has happened in different parts of the country and elsewhere. But all, like there are a number of different ways in which electricity theft happens: illegal tapping, electric meter tampering, irregular billing, and so on. According to a 2018 survey conducted in 6 Indian states, in Jain et al. 2018, they have found that about 94% of the rural people responded that power theft is an illegal activity and should be stopped. But at the same time, the same survey, 29% of the respondents reported that stealing exists in their village. So it means that while a large number of people agreed that it is an illegal activity, some of them considered that it happens right there under their nose. Right. So in addition to financial losses, the utility companies also face the problem of non-technical loss, which affects quality of supply. It increases load on the generating station. It affects tariff imposed on genuine customers. It also leads to difficulties in load estimation, which in turn leads to overloading or blackouts. A number of negative and adverse consequences are there when we talk about power theft. In fact, genuine customers bear the brunt of increased tariffs, and illegal tapping also has its own repercussions for critical safety of the people who are using it. And there are a number of adverse consequences of power theft. So, see, there is this study by Wong et al. 2021, in which they had done a survey experiment in UP. They found that electricity theft is viewed as more socially acceptable. So that's what I've been telling you short while back, that in largely collectivistic societies, sometimes people put a lot of premium on conformity and cooperation. So when it is when a large number of people think that this is socially acceptable, they are more likely to be forgiving in attitude towards power theft when there is low quality of electricity supply quality. There are many poor or low income households. So it all turns into a coordination game. And these people, they found that people prefer to be following their caste and religious communities in their electricity consumption behavior. So these are my results. So in all three contexts, national, rural, and urban India, I find that households reporting that he lives in a collectivistic village or neighborhood vis-a-vis an individualistic village increases the predicted probability of his reporting that his family consumes electricity illegally. So I also find that reporting of living in localities with higher consumption inequality, so regions with which have higher consumption inequality or higher incidence of local crime incidents, they also happen to have a higher incidence of electricity theft. And all these results are, as we are going to see, robust to different specifications and alternative explanations. So in the process, what I've done is I tried to unravel a new channel of explanation in the literature, that if we think about the local social structure characterized by collectivism, individualism, cleavages, it can go into explaining the incidence of electricity theft, which is one set of pro-social behavior, and it will have critical implications for designing such policies which would motivate more civic behavior in the people. So there's a huge amount of work that has been done on different factors that have that lead to the incidence of electricity theft. Mean and Golden, they find that a huge political lobby that drives down electricity bills in Uttar Pradesh. Mahadevan 2019 finds that in West Bengal, politicians systematically manipulate electricity bills in constituencies after elections, as bill power consumption is lower and real consumption is higher for their voters. OTR 2005 finds a nexus between large farmers and corrupt employees of the state-owned power company that leads to rampant power stealing in Rajasthan, India. There are many other papers like Gaur and Gupta, and there are other studies that have been done in other country contexts. They have found that power theft incidence is lower in regions of high literacy and low poverty. And then there are many other factors like literacy rate, income, urbanization, seasonality. There are different kinds of such factors that have been studied across different papers that explain the incidence of electricity theft in many different country contexts. For example, in Brazil, Mimi and so they find that electricity thieves in Brazilian slums, they thought that the power company was discriminating against them because they live in slum areas and they supply poor quality electricity to them, so they were motivated to steal electricity. So different regions have their own different kinds of regions, different contexts. But all the while, if you follow the vein of the work, see, social factors matter, cultural factors matter when explaining this kind of uncivic behavior. So the Depur et al. To 2011 decide that illiteracy and lack of legal awareness as main drivers of power theft. So dishonest consumers exploit inadequacies in the regulatory regimes and corrupt systems. And there have been many other papers. Won't get into that because I have limited time. We'll get to it if time permits. Okay, so my context for this particular study is about the data that I have used. The ISDS, the famous India Human Development Survey dataset, its second wave, 2011-12, and this dataset has been fronted by NCAR in association with University of Maryland. In the second wave, 42,155 households in 1503 villages and 971 urban neighborhoods were interviewed in a stratified multi-stage random sampling procedure. And as we all know, ISDS spans across a lot of economic development questions and modules, spanning individuals and households. Okay, so in this analysis, my final estimation sample size of 23,247 households, for which I analyzed the data for family heads aged between 20 and 80 years. And this is the summary statistics. So we'll get to that in a sort right now. Okay, so see, I begin with a set of probit and complementary log-log regressions. So because my dependent variable is whether the household has actually gotten access to electricity illegally or not, I have inferred that from a question like in the last month. What kind of electricity connections that you have used? So there are 7 options. Like you have paid somebody, you have paid a company, you have got the connection illegally, you do not know the source, and so on. So so the outcome variable is whether the household has gotten access to electricity illegally or not. And because it is binary in nature, so I used a set of probit regressions and have supplemented it with complementary log-log regressions because my outcome variable of electricity theft is rare in my sample. It has only around 8.7% positive responses. So to explain the factors driving the group differences in electricity theft, I also run the above probit and log-log models for male and female as well as socially general and disadvantaged groups. So at the outset, this kind of analysis would run into several identification issues. So to correct for the omitted variables bias, for example, which is a usual source of the endogeneity problem, I have controlled for a big array of plausible controls. But then even if I have controlled for a lot of relevant regresses in the model, I still consider some scope for endogeneity. For example, if a person who is locally politically connected, he or she may also happen to be the person who steals electricity, as it is perceived socially acceptable in the locality. So in that case, the parameter estimates would be biased. So therefore, in such cases, these results should be considered carefully. Then I try to employ what is called the recursive bivariate probit model. So I endogenize the collectivism individualism cleavage, whether the household belongs to a collectivistic village or an individualistic village. So I endogenized that and used the recursive bivariate probit model. And in those two sets of models, I have used 2 different kinds of instruments: local caste conflict likelihood and household outstanding debt with the local subkeeper. What is my logic here? See, across India, you look at the villages, you think of the villages, and there are certain villages wherein you can actually buy certain things from a local subkeeper on credit. So in such cases, different households will have some outstanding debt with a local subkeeper. Now, this particular thing is more likely to be present in a collectivistic village than in an individualistic village, because collectivistic village is such that people help each other. So the local shopkeeper may be more likely to give you things, provisions and credit, right? So because people help out each other compared to an individualistic village. So that this particular dummy I have used as an instrument. And another set of regressions I have also used local caste conflict likelihood. So whether the village is prone to local caste conflicts or not. So that again is an indicator of the level of solidarity, the cooperation that's prevalent in those villages. Now, even after employing two different kinds of instruments in these recursive bivariate probability setups, I found that the wall test statistic, that the correlation parameter between the two equations, the rho equal to 0, the wall test statistic that has the null hypothesis that rho equals to 0 could not be rejected. So I'm fine with using the simple probability estimation. So statistically, it shows that the collectivistic individualistic village, the gap, the collectivism individualism cleavage gap is not endogenous. So I'm fine with the probability estimation. So this is my descriptive statistics. So as you can see, electricity theft is prevalent in 8.7% of the sample. Collectivism in 7.3% of the households, they belong to the collectivistic societies, and then there are other kinds of variables. So explanations are written. We'll get back to that in case question arises. This is my correlation matrix of different variables. It shows that collectivistic locality and electricity theft, they have a strong positive correlation. So collectivistic, as I was telling you when I was introducing with the preliminary results, collectivistic societies are more prone to electricity theft in my analysis. Okay, so this is my major result. So as you can see, I have presented the results for the national, rural, and urban settings. So here you see in the national sample, collectivistic villages with collectivistic culture vis-a-vis the individualistic culture, they are 2.6% more prone to have electricity theft. So the incidence of electricity theft is 2.6% higher in collectivistic villages than in individualistic villages. The same, I mean, in the rural settings, it's 3.3%, and in urban settings, it's 0.9%. And the same line of results have been confirmed in the clog log models. I have also controlled for caste conflict, new local crime incidents, local political connections of the households, civic body meeting participation. So these many variables I'm showing you because they belong to the set of local political economic factors. All other household characteristics, household head characteristics, geographic identifiers, all have been there. All are there in the model, but I'm not showing it because of lack of space. So another interesting result here is, say I've used confidence in police. The household heads confidence in police, which can be a proxy measure of the level of institutions, the crime deterring institutions in the locality. See, the very first thing is, if the likelihood of getting caught is higher, then the incentive or the propensity to become more pro-social increases. So the likelihood, I do not have I don't have data for measuring the likelihood of getting caught, but I'm proxying it with the level of confidence that people repose in their police as a proxy for that. So if people have more confidence in police, it means that probably the likelihood of getting caught in case of a crime or in case of a non-violent crime like electricity theft would increase. So here, if the confidence in police is higher, then the incidence of electricity theft is lower. So that means if the likelihood of getting caught is higher, then the propensity to be more pro-social will increase. And I've also controlled for something called pro-police relative. So if your relative is policeman, then probably you're a bit more safe, right? So I have control for that. Of course, it is insignificant, but I have control for that. I have also control for village fixed effects and all such appraisals are there. These are the other variables that I've used, like their social household head characteristics, their social groups, their education, age, etc. Household their household characteristics like log fuel expenditure, log electricity expenditure, their household income, whether they are BPL cardholders or whether they have media exposure and so on, their household subjective well-being, rural, urban, all those variables have been controlled. Okay, so then I looked at the heterogeneities. So if you look at the male household heads and families that are male household heads, vis-a-vis the families with female household heads. Here also I find the same line of results. So collectivistic villages are more likely to be witnessing higher incidence of literacy compared to the individualistic villages. So and then regions with higher consumption inequality, they are more and they are witnessing higher incidence of literacy. So the same line of results hold in case of social group heterogeneities. So in families with SC, ST, OBC household heads, again I find the same line of results. Collectivistic cultures, they are more prone to having higher incidence of electricity theft because they tend to help out each other. They put a lot of premium on tolerating their own dereliction of social norms part of their community people. I also control for the confidence in local body, all civic body meeting participation. To look for this. Okay, so these are my conclusions as I was telling you. So in all the contexts, I find that individualistic villages, they happen to be witnessing less electricity theft because, as I was saying, they are much more intolerant of any dereliction of social norms. But collectivistic societies, they happen to have higher incidence of electricity theft. I also find that in more unequal regions, more crime-prone regions mean higher electricity theft, which is actually obvious theoretically as well as in practice. I also, this is an important thing that I just told you several back, that if your likelihood of getting caught is higher, then it would have an impact on social behavior. So in our case, electricity theft is low. So other factors like levels of public trust in state government, levels of trust in local government, they also play a significant role. And this is a modest contribution to that line of literature on how local social structure affects prosocial behavior. Now, having said that, what does it mean in the context of the literature that we have? See, if societies, they try to adopt more civic norms, then of course it would pave the way for improvement of accountability and quality of public service delivery in low income and developing country settings. Therefore, if we understand the socio-political factors, public attitudes, and norms in a more scientific way, then it would be actually policy critical to attaining effective compliance of legal electricity consumption. So there are a lot of there's a lot of research in this line of work which understands social norms and local collectives and legal cleavages. And they all place an importance in explaining how we differ in ways we behave in the varied societies we live in, why corruption happens and how they evolve, and how we should actually go about addressing such issues and promoting civicness amongst the citizenry. So with this, let me conclude the talk here, and I'm open to questions and suggestions because it's a work in progress. So thank you, Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation, for giving me this opportunity once again. And I'm opening the floor to Professor Gangopadhyay for his suggestions, feedback, and other questions.
Dr. Panda, a beautiful presentation, and particularly highlights that we often consider the theft as an antisocial behavior. But some local communities with strong collective bonds, they may not consider that. And there's an evidence what he has shown here. So they might consider it as some sort of like beneficial for the community. And in that sense, the theft will increase. So that is kind of the highlight of the paper. I think he has used a very good technique. So he has made a very good use of a technique called instrumental variable. to capture this issue. Yeah, so I would invite the audience to ask their questions on that. Please keep your questions short and to the point. Thank you all.
Hi, Sitakanta.
Hi.
This is Kiran. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I have a few clarificatory questions, and maybe in the next round, I'll give some comments and suggestions to make this paper, analytically more rigorous. Clarificatory questions. It didn't, come very clear to me how you measured individualistic societies vis-a-vis collective societies. One, and the electricity theft question. It is pointed to a household. Is it a household revealed question? Again, that was not very clear. Okay, these are my initial clarificatory questions. Then we'll go ahead with the discussion.
Yeah, so
Your voice is breaking.
yeah, so can you hear me now? So in the ISDS questionnaire, there is this question. How do you solve your community problems? Do you solve it together, or do you solve it individually? Right. So if you you solve your community problems together, that means it's an example of collectivistic behavior. And if you solve a common problem individually, and on the part of your family, then you, as an individual or as a household, you are more individualistic. So that household specific question is there. So I'm using it as a measure of whether the household is believing in collectivistic or individualistic.
If that is the case, how do we account for heterogeneous responses of households within a village?
So the question has been posed to the respondent, but the question is, in your village, how do you solve the problem? So how do you solve the problem? How do you solve the community problems? Do you solve the community problem together, or do you solve the problem individually? So if that is yes, then this guy lives in a collectivistic village.
So that means all the households in that village will be having answer one.
Yes, collectivistic village. So collectivistic village. And the analysis is at the level of family. So there are 20,000. Sample size is 20,000 odd. So it depends on the kind of responses that they have given. So it's a perception related data. So they're saying that in my village, I solve the problem. We solve the problem together, or we solve the problem individually. And electricity theft question, say in India, it's a very problematic thing. But then there's a question in the module on electricity consumption, like how have you paid the electricity bills? So there are different kinds of options are there. So on those options, like you have used an illegal connection, you cannot say the source, you cannot say the how you paid the bill, or you do not want to say, or there are these 3-4 ambiguous kind of answers. I am actually clubbing them together and saying that. Of course, it is up to the researchers' discretion to infer that somebody may have found some foul play. So I'm saying that they have got the connection illegally, because otherwise, bearing a few cases, see, if you are using the connection legally, there is absolutely no incentive on your part to lie that you have got the connection illegally. So an honest individual respond in a more honest way. So on the assumption of that, I'm saying that those who are not able to say anything about the kind of consumption that they are having, so they are probably using their connections illegally. So my variable that the household uses electricity illegally is based on the inference that the kind of answers that
your voice is breaking. It's very difficult.
So can you hear me now?
Could you please turn off your video? Let's try if that gets better. Because
so can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay.
Could you please repeat about?
So I'm saying that an honest respondent doesn't have any incentive of lying, right? So he would forthrightly say that he has used electricity, he has consumed electricity honestly. So those people who are not in a position to answer the question correctly, or they are hesitant, or they're saying that, some of them have directly said that they have used, electricity illegally. But then people who are saying that the source is ambiguous, we cannot say, we do not want to say these kind of things. I have taken some liberty in inferring that they have, they have consumed electricity illegally.
That could also be conditional upon the individual characteristics, right?
Right.
How you are reporting your answer. Am I right?
Yes. So for that, I need to do. I get your point. I'll do an analysis for that.
No, I'll wait for some time. Maybe students will have some questions, then we'll discuss in the second round.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you for your presentation. I have two questions, just to understand once again. So you had mentioned about, I think, collective action in terms of punishment. Let's say individualist collective societies and individualistic societies. So in terms of punishment, individualistic societies would be more efficient because they would be reporting the cases of electricity theft. But when it comes to self-reporting, it's the other way around, because collective societies are considered to be, more self-reporting. Is that what you've mentioned?
No, I said that. See, your past line was correct. Individualistic societies are more likely to report any dereliction of social norms, because they think that any shortcoming, any misbehavior on the part of any one of their citizenry would lead to a loss in the collective welfare, right? But in the collectivistic societies, it cuts both ways. So, sometimes collectivistic societies, people, they think that it is always in the interest of everyone, and that they follow the norms of reciprocity and cooperation. And in certain other contexts, people think that since these are our own people, they are having issues like poverty or resource constraints, or some of them are related to local political connections. So let us tolerate their dereliction of social norms. So if that happens, then the people in the collectivistic societies are less likely to report to the police.
Okay.
Or enforcement authorities, because everything, they hide that kind of thing amongst themselves. So they don't want to actually they think that it is socially acceptable to fall short on the civic behavior. So in that case, the reporting likelihood would be less in collectivistic societies vis-a-vis individualistic ones.
Okay. And the second question, actually, I just wanted to know your thoughts, because I think in your last slide, you had mentioned adopting social norms would lead to sort of a better collective society. But what if the existing social norms are itself, not conducive to, better development? So I would just like your clarification or explanation, thoughts, etc. on that.
Sometimes see, social norms, they can be bad or good, and changing the social norms on the part of the state is very difficult. It's very difficult because behavioral policy interventions, they take a lot of time to get percolated down to every nook and corner in the society. So it's relatively more difficult to change the existing local social norms. So instead, economists and other practitioners, they are now advocating that, see, you align the existing local norms, existing local social norms, with the kind of incentives that you are providing to promote civic behavior or pro-social behavior. So if you align the existing local norms bring along the cultural factors, make people feel at ease with the norms that they have been brought up with, and then incentivize them, then that would actually promote more pro-social behavior. So, but we cannot, I mean, it's very difficult to actually change local social norms. They are largely time invariant. So it's very difficult to change them. So instead, we have to quick incentives. We have to provide incentives in such a way that they are aligned with local social norms.
There's a question in the chat box.
Yeah, so there's a question from someone called Aditya Krishnan. So he's asking how much it can be believed that the respondents can be honest and truthful, especially when there is enough incentive for them to do the theft and present themselves as honest. And as mentioned, there is enough factors that can make the collective society to compromise on the aspect of power theft. How much can the political will as a factor can bring a change in form of rule that can force the society to be pro-social? The second aspect I cannot measure empirically because I don't fast this kind of data set doesn't permit me to do, and probably I have to do a lot of back and forth. It's relatively more difficult to do it empirically. But the fast concern is can be addressed a bit more. I mean, it can be addressed. So he says, you say that when there is enough incentive for them to do the theft and present themselves honest, so how can you believe that respondents have given honest and truthful assessments? So there I'm saying that if the local, there are two things. One, these kind of variables, they have a lot of measurement error. So given that we are actually basing our outcome variable on inference and discretion. That's one thing. So for measurement error, again, there are a number of empirical techniques which I have not used, probably may not be suitable in this case. That's one thing. But then you see, as I was saying, if the likelihood of getting caught is higher, then the incentive or the propensity on the part of the citizen to be more pro-social will increase. So for that, I have included 2-3 relevant controls, including the confidence in police, local police, including the confidence in local government. So my thesis here is that since their trust in the local institutions, law enforcement institutions is higher, I think these respondents have higher incentive, higher propensity to be acting more pro-socially. That means they are less likely to indulge in electricity theft. Indeed, I have got the coefficient signs significant and positive, significant and negative in my graduates.
Yeah, Dr. Panda, this is Anup from Gulati Institute. I just have one observation. In the first slide, you have shown electricity theft to be a public good problem, but strictly speaking, electricity need not be a public good because we pay for it. It could be rather addressed as a merit good. So that's my only observation. Otherwise, interesting paper. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So actually, yeah, you are right. In many of the papers, actually, they have mentioned this. It's a major public goods problem. Probably they may have referred it to be a public policy problem. So in that sense, it's a policy problem. But I take your point. I am home on this with you.
Okay. Now coming to the empirical part of it, one quick clarificatory question, then I'll go to other part of empirics. Did they not ask this question in 2004 survey?
They have.
They have, right?
They have, but then some of the questions, some of the questions are not there.
No, why I asked that is
like some of the additional questions that I have
considered 2004 panel, then that effects would have considered a lot of variables that would be driving your outcome. Okay. Okay, that apart. See, one of the things that I was thinking about, there are very few, although you have incorporated their trust on police, there are very few variables that will capture how efficiently the state could monitor theft. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Now, it's very. I understand the limitations that data poses here, but you could still consider whether a village has a pakka road and infrastructure, which are part of IHDS questionnaire.
Right.
They ask the road connectivity question in IHDS.
Right.
That would, in a way, address some of this, monitoring issue. If village has a better infrastructure, then it would be easy for the agencies to monitor. The other would be, why don't you try whether, suppose you have a village which is individualistic, and if you have a neighboring village which is a collective, whether neighborhood effects will drive, the decisions. Okay. In fact, you could think of creating a new variable and interact with it.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And see, coming to the empirical part of it, very interestingly, you will see that in your results, you've shown that in urban areas, the significance level goes down to 10%, right?
Yes, I think, yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't that partly kind of reflect urban areas are better monitored because they have more density population, they have maybe offices situated close by and so on. So it is very difficult to, and in one of the variables that you could consider is the electricity connectivity in the villages. Okay, that will also be one of the ways of monitoring whether households are, getting into these kind of practices. Otherwise, what explains why is it that the theft happens relatively low as compared in urban areas as compared to rural areas?
Yes.
It could be because of two things. It could mean that urban areas have better monitoring systems, or it could also mean that urban income on average is higher than rural income. Poverty is, playing a role. If that seems to be the case, what you could do is to interact your main variable of interest with households BPL or APL card. That will tell you the channel, how it is working, right?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. So that could actually tell whether it is poverty in a particular society that is driving your decision.
Yes.
Right. And when you brought in the regressions across social category and so on, it would actually be interesting rather than running separate regressions because the coefficients can't be compared. It would have been easier if you had interacted with the main variable of interest. Then we will be able to see how it changes across groups. Okay, the marginal effects will be very easy to interpret.
Right.
Right.
Yes. So yes, I copied down. Yeah. So yes.
Yeah. These are my broad comments. The last one is about your instrument, which is outstanding debt with the shopkeeper. Okay. It could mean, I'm assuming here it's an interest-free debt, right?
Pardon?
So when you said, I'm assuming that that debt is an interest-free debt.
Yes.
Right. Now, that is conditional upon the overall well-being of the village, right? If a village is slightly well off, it is likely that they will have less outstanding debt with shopkeepers. It need not really capture their, collective interactions or social support. How do we rule out that possibility if you consider that as an instrument?
Okay. So can you I mean repeat what you just said, because
Yeah, this is regarding your instrument, second instrument, debt with the shopkeeper. Okay.
right. Please.
You're taking that as a proxy for your interactions, right?
No, so that is an instrument for the collectivism, individualism cleavage. So my logic is, if the household, if there is this local shopkeeper, and with whom you have a lot of outstanding debt, that means you are more likely to stay in a collectivistic village, because in a collectivistic village people help.
Exactly. So
People tend to help out each other more than in
it sometimes may not really reflect collectivism, because your outstanding debt is also a function of how well off the households are in a village. Suppose
Yeah.
I'm well off, why will I have a debt with any shopkeeper?
Yes, it makes sense, huh?
That's all.
Yeah, so thank you, Kiran, for all these perceptive set of comments. And in fact, these are all valuable suggestions that I have actually noted down. So these are actually going to help me in more meaningful ways. Okay, so your assessment that the urban areas, for the urban areas, my results, my coefficients are bit more tepid, so they're much lower than the coefficients that I have found in the rural and urban, rural and national samples. You are right that maybe urban areas are more, I mean, and they are better monitored, or they, on an average, people are much better in urban areas than in the rural ones. So that I have to actually think of, and ascertaining which one is actually correct in my case. Which particular factor is driving my results in the urban context. You also have given me a lot of suggestions on using some interactive effects, making some combinations with main variable of interest, CIC, as well as other variables. So they're going to be very helpful. I actually wholeheartedly accept all these comments and suggestions. But of course, your last question is actually will make me work a lot, because of course this instrument has a lot of problems. Outstanding debt with a local shopkeeper may be higher in villages that are a higher number of rich people, rather than it being a collectivistic village.
Point, say for instance, outstanding debt with local shopkeepers could be higher in villages that are predominantly agrarian, because their revenue is not monthly regular income, it would be seasonal. So
yes. So this IV is problematic in sense. I'll have to look into the possibility of your contentions. So I'll get into it. But even then, these recursive bivariate probit models tell me that they are not necessary. The main variable of interest, that the endogenous variable, supposedly endogenous variable, which is collectivism, individualism, cleavage, is not endogenous, because the rho equals to 0, that null hypothesis I could not write there. So the joint, the error term, the correlation parameter of two error terms in the two equations, it did not turn out to be 0. So therefore I'm happy with using the simple probit and log radials. But then I have to show that again in the paper. I have to show that this is indeed the case. I will show it. But then this I think I'll definitely get into it because this is now this is a very well. This is you have given me a good good line of thinking. I'll get to it actually. Whether it is a result of living in a richer village or in a predominantly agrarian village, that we are saying that outstanding debt with a local shopkeeper would be a plausible instrument. This is an important. and all other suggestions I have taken it. Thank you.
Thank you, Siddhakant.
Very enlightened discussion. I'm happy to be chair and witness to have it. So shall we close our session now? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, particularly the Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation, Professor Joseph. I don't see him here, but my sincerest thanks to him. And of course, Dr. Kiran.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kiran and Anup and others. We'll see you sometime soon.
Thank you, Siddhakant.
Till then, goodbye.
For accepting our invitation and being with us today. And it was a wonderful paper, very good insights. And the way you work with the data to explore these usually unexplored channels, very interesting.
Thank you so much. We'll see you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully we'll meet you sometime.
Yeah, sure.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.